session. If you went to the previous session with Nina's, I hope you won't be disappointed because my session is a little bit more on the practical side. But I really enjoyed the previous session with all the background knowledge and all the research. So I think it's very eye-opening. All right, so let's get to the session. So the session is called Plan B, or When Technology Fails. And it's basically, I'll tell you a little bit about how I came to create this session. So as Melissa mentioned, I work at the British Council, and I'm not sure if most of you know, but at the British Council, we use technology a lot in our classes. We use PowerPoint, we use PowerPoint, YouTube videos, the internet for different things. We play different games with our online games with our students. So we use it basically in most of our classes. But we also teach in a lot of offsite schools and offsite centers. And sometimes the technology there isn't as reliable as in our on-site classes, or even it might happen on-site as well, where all of a sudden the internet crashes, the light bulb on the projector stops working, something happens and the computer crashes, and you can't use what you were planning to use. So the reason why I came up with this session is also for me and for my colleagues to have kind of a list. So the anti-panic when technology fails list of different activities for kind of, okay, maybe the problem might be solved, so we have just a few warmers, or the problem will not be solved until later on until the following class, and therefore we have to do a zero tech class. But the idea is to still kind of keep on track and to work with the materials that your students have. Okay, so the activities that I'm going to show you are tried and tested. They're some of my favorite activities. All you need is your course book and paper. So hopefully most of the time that's what you have in the classroom already. So you don't need technology or any other resources for that. And they're not only zero technology, but they're also zero preparation. Because again, this is kind of in the event that you had a lovely PowerPoint prepared and you wanted to use it in class, but now you can't. This is kind of the plan B for the lesson, which doesn't take students away from the topic that you were working on. Okay, so we're going to look at three activity styles. So warmers, again, yeah, maybe in 10 minutes, we're just waiting for the projector. We've turned it on, off and on, and we're waiting to see if this time around it will come on properly. And then the projector is definitely not working, so a longer lesson structure. And then also a way of finishing the class if it happens towards the end of the class, or if you do need to finish a class in a different way. All right, so let's get to it. I know from the poll, from the pre-task, that a lot of you use technology in class, and that you have had some technical issues at times. I think it's natural. It comes with the territory. And just warning, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, and most of you probably know a lot of these activities. So the session should be kind of also a reminder of kind of when we're in a situation where we have to resort to the plan B scenario. These are the ideas that you can think of on the spot. Okay, so warmers. One of my favorite things is to ask your students to doodle in their notebooks. So the first time you do it, a lot of students will not know what doodling is, so you explain it to them. And then while they're doodling, you try and see if you can get the technology back on. And imagine you've been working on a vocabulary set. And once they finish doodling, after a minute or maximum two, you ask them to find the vocabulary and color it in their doodle. Okay, so this is an example from my students. I can see it extremely clearly, but I think you might not be able to, from my previous experience, to showing it to colleagues. But can you try and guess what vocabulary set we were working on? Can you try and put your answers in the chat? Can you see what they colored in? Colors? Okay, so they colored it. So I asked them to color it in with colors, but they had to see something. Oh, okay, pets, animals. Okay, lots of animals coming up. All right. Okay. See, I can see it so clearly, and they could as well. Okay, we were at clothes. Okay, thank you, Sonia. Okay, yeah, we were working on clothes. I don't know if you can see it in the left, in the picture on the left bottom corner. There's a pink tie and an orange scarf, and in the right top hand corner, there's a yellow sock. But yeah, I've tried this before with other colleagues, and yeah, they couldn't see it either. So, but yeah, it was clear to my students and me. And what they did afterwards, what they did afterwards was they swapped their notebooks and they tried to guess what the other person saw in their doodle. Okay. The next one is again, one of my favorites. Open your course book at any page. So you literally ask students to do that. Open your course book at any page that's got a picture. And they have to be sitting opposite each other so that they can't see their pictures. And depending on the level, so for 7 to 8-year-olds, maybe ask them to find 2 similarities. For higher levels, so for example, if you're teaching secondary advanced, try and find 6 similarities in the pictures and give them an example. So for example, are there people in your picture? Yes or no? Is there something blue in your picture? Yes or no? Is your picture outside? Etc. Okay, so they take time and then they report back to you what similarities they've seen, and then they are able to compare their pictures, and it's kind of a fun, quick activity at the beginning, while again you're trying to see if the computer will turn back on. Okay, next one, drawing on your head. So this is an activity where you choose a picture. You choose a picture in your notebook and don't show it to your students. You ask them to put a paper on your head, and then you look at the picture and dictate it to them. So in the top right-hand corner, there's a football. In the middle of the picture, there are 2 people talking. Okay. And then what students do is then you point them, once they've finished, they share their pictures, they look at them together, and then they compare the pictures against the against the picture in the course book. Okay, so again, I wouldn't do it with upper secondary students, but lower secondary students up to 14 are very happy to do that, and they find it quite a lot of fun. Okay, so again, so that's working with the pictures that you already have in the course book, and they don't necessarily have to be pictures that you've already looked at previously. You're just using them as a visual resource. All right. So our next activity is a warmer activity, extremely simple, scrambled questions. Take your course book, choose a page with a couple of questions, and write the questions, write the words all jumbled up on the board, and then ask students in pairs to try and come up with the answer, with the actual questions. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example. So we have 3 questions here. in the chat, can you try and write down what you think number 1 is? Oh, Maria, I've just noticed. Yeah, if they open the same page with the previous activity, if they open it on the same page, then you're there to monitor and walk around. If you see that happening, then just ask one of the students to you choose a page for them. Oh, you guys are good. Okay, some people have moved on to number 2. Great. Okay. Perfect. So, let's have a look if you were right. Okay, here we go. So this is from one of our British Council course books. Well, magazines. We use magazines instead of course books, and you can see the questions at the bottom. On the left-hand side, at the bottom of the cover of the magazine. So even if you've done this activity before, even if they've talked about these pictures, they can still do this activity. You can ask them to answer those questions about the different activity. It can be revision. What can you remember this about the text from the text that we read last class? Can you remember the answers from the listening that we did last week? So it can be a nice kind of revision activity while again you're trying to do something else in the meantime. Okay, well done. Again, extremely simple, no preparation. All you need is your course book. Okay, the next one is a game that I love to use in class, and I don't use it often enough. So basically, it's called the dice game. If I'm not sure if I'm sure a lot of you have heard it before. So this is what you elicit on the board. So you ask, how many numbers does the dice have? 6. Okay, great. So um, these are the actions that you have to do if you get that number. And this is an example from one of our magazines for 10-year-old students. So some sports. So as a teacher, I take the course book, ask a student to come up. They roll the dice. Maybe it's number 3. So I show them the sport that I want them to spell. Again, this is where your role comes in because you need to try and so for example, miming. Some activities might not be as easy to mime. So you choose the word. Okay. So spell. Okay, it's going to be rugby, and the student has to spell it quickly. So they say RUGBY, and another student puts up their hand. If they get it correctly, they're the next person. Sometimes, most of the time, I carry dice with me, but sometimes I don't. So what I have done in the past, and it actually works really well for this activity, is I just write numbers on pieces of paper, literally rip up pieces of paper, write numbers, fold them up so that the students can't see the number, and then they come and pick one up. The reason why I'm saying it works really well for this activity is that you get all the different types of actions, because that way you're taking the numbers away and then you can put them back in. Whereas with the dice, you can't control it, of course. Okay, so this is slightly higher levels because some of them, especially the gap fill, might be quite difficult for some levels. There's a lower level version of this, which is this one. So instead of using doing 6 actions, you do only 3: mime, drawing, and spelling. And so 2 numbers on the dice go with one activity. Okay. And yeah, it's an all-time favorite with students. And again, so you're getting the vocabulary from your course book, and it's a good idea to kind of revise something that they'd seen before, maybe some time ago as well. Okay, and as I said, no worry if you don't have dice. Pieces of paper actually work really, really well, and for students they kind of enjoy it as well because it's kind of the opening and the revealing of the number. Okay, in the chat, can anyone tell me what this game is called? Okay, perfect. Yeah, lots of you, got it. Okay, so I call it Stop the Bus, but yes, categories, Tutti Frutti. Yeah, it's got lots of different names. Um, but we have now moved on to the longer lesson structures. So we've looked at warmers. So we looked at doodles, open your course book at any page, draw on your head, scrambled questions, and the dice game. And now you have realized that you definitely won't be able to use the PowerPoint, and you need something to fill up the next 40 minutes, 30 minutes of your class. So this game works really well. I'm sorry if I'm going to be very, very basic. I'm just going to explain it to the people who might not know how to play it. So you choose categories, then as the teacher, you start the alphabet and say A, and then in your head, you think of the alphabet. When your students stop you, you say a letter, and then in teams, they have to come up with the words for each of the categories. And then when they finish, they say, stop the bus, and everyone stops. If they have the same word for the category, they get 5 points. If they have a different word for the category than another team, it's 10 points. And if they're the only team with a word in the category, they get 20 points. So those are the good points. Okay, and how do you think I chose I choose the categories for the different categories? Can you write your answers in the chat? Yes, exactly. All of you are getting, the right answer. Yeah. Units in the course book, previous, even maybe simplified kind of sections. And I do let them sometimes to have like a special, they love I don't know why, but my students love the country or city one. But you know, so I do let them have a special one. They sometimes want to do celebrities, so that's where I draw the line. But yeah, it's fun to have kind of like a special acceptable category as well. And this game kind of takes quite a long time, especially if you then write all the vocabulary which came up that you want to highlight on the board. and then they have to highlight it in their notebooks as well. If they didn't have something, they have to write it down, etc., etc. Also, when I, as the teacher, go, hey, I am actually thinking about the letters that I want them to use, and they never know. Great. Okay, so moving on, we're still going to be on the longer lesson structures. Okay. Again, so this is a British Council course book magazine. It's for a higher level, so it's upper secondary B2. And what I did with my students is we had to do we had to work on this project. We had to do the reading and the exercises, and I had a lovely PowerPoint, but the projector wasn't working. So we did the next best thing, which was to play noughts and crosses. So it's really important that you divide the page or the pages in the book clearly. I wouldn't go over 2 pages. I don't think that's necessary. And you ask students to do the same thing. So in pencil, write the numbers that I am actually asking you to write down. Ignore the numbers in the course book. As you can see, they coincide at the beginning of the unit, but they don't coincide later on. So overwrite those numbers. Divide the class into 2 groups. Half are noughts, half are crosses. And what is very important for me is that everyone works. Everyone participates and they all work together. So I ask them to work in teams, and everyone has to write down the answers, because when they give me the answers, they give it to me, they take it in turns to give me the answers. And if someone doesn't give me the correct answer, or if another team member tries to help them, as in that person who's reading hadn't written it down, then they lose their turn, and it goes automatically to the other team, and the other team continues from that sentence on. Okay, so this is what I normally do. I draw a grid on the board, write numbers, and I try and make the board kind of as logical as possible, so that you can get kind of like 3 in a line, which is where they get the points. And students choose. One group starts. So for example, crosses are going to start, and they're going to do number 6. Both groups prepare number 6. They give me the answer. It wasn't the right answer. It goes over to noughts. Noughts give me the right answer. Noughts get the square. Towards the end, you're going to run out of the possibility of lines. So I always get them for the final point. We count the squares that haven't been used in a line, and that group gets the final point. So that way we use all the squares. And I like to insert some kind of fun squares as well. So, and students always ask me, oh, what's the asterisk one? And the asterisk one is just a bonus point. So I ask them like a very simple question, like, how are you? Or am I right in one of the squares a P? And they're like, okay, should we go for it? Should we not? Okay. And then they say, okay, we'll choose P. And it's, oh, can you tell me 3 words that start with P, for example? So that's very simple. And again, this activity that's why it's the longer lesson structure. It takes a long time because they really focus on getting the points, on getting the squares, and on getting the answers right in their course book. Okay. So we're continuing with the longer lesson structures. And I'm going to show you another one of my, sorry, I keep on saying it, but they are my favorite activities. So it's a word snake. And how did can you write in the chat how you think, what kind of instructions I gave students to come up with this? I'm going to give you a minute. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great, great. Okay. So, the way we so you're kind of, sorry, that must have been my mistake, but you're kind of thinking about more what happens afterwards. But again, this is a typical kind of vocabulary set in a course book. And what I ask them to do is to draw a spiral. In this photo, I used paper plates, but you can just draw a spiral. Ask them to draw it as big as possible in their notebooks. So and explain how thick, how wide the spiral should be. So about a centimeter, and draw a spiral until you get to the end and draw a head. Then they have to cut it out, uh, and then ask them to separate it into 10 or 15 or however many vocabulary items you have in the vocabulary set. Or even better, squares, fewer than the vocabulary items, and then ask them to choose the vocabulary that they want to focus on the most. So vocabulary that's the most challenging, that you like the most, etc., so that they're not writing good, bad, because they already know that. Okay, so once they finish the snake, again, if you have access to glitter, it's lovely to put some glitter on it. If you have access to colors, again, color it in. Amazing. And then a lot of you suggested that in the chat, the follow-up is come up with a story using these adjectives, or give a definition. So show your partner your word snake, give a definition of one of the adjectives, and your partner has to look at your word snake and guess what adjective you're talking about. Okay, great. Next one, let me see what you guys wrote in the chat. Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. So the next one is uh, okay, one of my all-time favorites, fortune teller. So I'm going to show you an example. So this is one that I prepared for 9-year-olds, and the topic was jobs. And in the unit, there were different lexical sets. So there were jobs, then there were places in town, and also personal traits. So what we did was on the outside of the fortune teller, we wrote the places in town, because I thought if you can see from the fortune teller, there on the outside we wrote 4 things and then 8 and 8 in the middle, and the places in town were actually the easiest for them. So that's why we chose the places in town to go there, so that they don't focus as much on them. Then when we opened up the fortune teller, we wrote the personal traits, and then inside there were the jobs. So when I use fortune tellers, I use them a lot for vocabulary like this. And the way we use them in class is students spell things out. So they're holding the fortune teller, and then another student comes up to them and they say, for example, library. So they go Library, and then they open it up, and then they choose the personal trait, punctual, PU, etc., etc., and then they choose the adjective again, and then it's inside. Oh, you will be an actor. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute. Can you think of the current course books or the current units you're working on? And in the chat, could you please write the three sequences? So three lexical sets that you would use in a fortune teller. And it's a good idea that the last one for the final reveal is something that's going to happen in the future, because that's why they're called fortune tellers. So you will be an actor, you're going to work in a hospital, etc., etc. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to come up with that in the chat. So three lexical sets, and the last one is the reveal. Teaching directions in town, yeah, definitely. Oh, okay. Lovely. Oh, teaching music notes. Okay. Okay, I think I'd fill that one. All right. Okay. Some amazing examples, kind of for example, illness, what the doctor says and what the treatment is. I like the one about advertising, slogans, products. Great. Someone asked about how to make a fortune teller. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. Uh, just Google it. It's extremely simple. But before you do it in class, I strongly advise you to teach it yourself so that you're familiar with it. It's extremely easy to make, and I guarantee that someone in your class will know how to make them. But yeah, definitely, just in case, teach yourself how to do it. All right, but yeah, extremely easy, and your students will know that. Okay, hobbies, your favorite things. Okay, so that's interesting. So the outcome would be your favorite thing is, etc. Okay, you could do it at sports. You can do it. Okay, means of transport, places, holiday types. Oh, that's a lovely one. So on your holiday, you will go to. Great, 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 great. That's amazing. Okay, now moving on, I'm going to show you even more origami, but I don't expect you to teach yourself all of them. But what I'm trying to say is it's a good idea to teach yourself kind of one or two basic origami, like the fortune teller. And then when you're in a situation where the lesson that you'd planned, that you can't teach the lesson you'd planned, you resort to origami as a means of making the lesson memorable and enjoyable for your students. So it's not the origami that is the main focus, it's the vocabulary or the language that you use afterwards once you've made the origami with your students. Okay, so this is one of my favorite ones. An envelope, super simple. Again, I'm not going to show you how to make this, but these are just ideas and some of my favorites. If you Google it, it's extremely simple, and you just ask students to write on the envelope, put things inside the envelope, take it home, test each other. They take out the word, they take out a sentence. Is it a true or false sentence? They copy a sentence, a true or false sentence after a reading from the course book and test each other. So anything and everything instead of just using the notebook. This is a little house, which again they can create. They don't have to use it as a house. They can use it as a means to use their imagination for other things. This was, for example, used as a film set. A t-shirt, they can design a t-shirt, write on a t-shirt, do whatever, draw the rest of the person. It's their choice. A little doll. Again, they can let their imagination run free. They can tell stories with the doll. They can do anything and everything. They can write descriptions, etc. So it's a good idea to Google some of these things. Just Google simple origami, try it. If you don't feel comfortable, definitely don't use it in class, and especially under stressful circumstances like you have to do a different lesson than the one you'd originally planned. But it's a good idea to have this ready just in case you need to use it and students really enjoy it. Okay. Another one. This one is very, very simple. Uh, can you write in the chat if you've ever made a paper snowflake? Okay, yeah. Yes, of course. So for those of you who haven't, um, okay, some of you haven't. Okay, okay, cool. So you basically take a piece of paper, fold it, and then make little triangles, and then you just cut. And you cut as many times as you like without damaging the main structure. And then you reveal your lovely snowflake. Okay, this one is very, very basic, but you saw it took me literally 5 seconds. And then what I use the snowflake for is I enlisted some questions onto the board. With lower levels, I always use, what's your favorite animal? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite subject at school? Students, I think you can see that in the pictures. This was with a lower level class. So students write only the answers to those questions on the papers. And then we make it snow in the classroom, as you can see in the pictures. So they take their snowflake, throw it up in the air, and then, but only when I say they can, they go and find one snowflake and then try and find the owner of that snowflake. And they find it by asking the questions. So if the answers don't coincide, they have to try and speak to someone else, and then they write the person's name. If they take their own snowflake, which can happen, I always tell them to come and speak to me very quietly and give it to me, and I just swap theirs with another student, and we just continue the activity. Okay, so what kind of questions would you, so I've shown you an example of lower levels. What kind of questions would you ask higher level students? So with the lower levels, I always use, what's your favorite? Blah, blah. With higher level students, so we're thinking secondaries now, what kind of questions would you ask them? I'm thinking mostly about possibly grammar structures that we could use to ask the questions. Okay, about their hometown. Yes, what would you do if? Oh, okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Second conditional. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Lovely. Okay. So I think most of you Uh, perfect. So most of you coincided with second conditional, present perfect. Uh, could you? Yes, excellent. So because future plans, perfect. Okay. So because if you imagine them walking around with the snowflake, it's unlikely they'll bump into the first person the first time they ask a question. So especially for lower levels, the structures that are sometimes difficult to frequently, meaningfully repeat in the classroom, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to use this. So if you could be an animal, what animal would you be? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, or have you ever, yeah? Great. Lovely. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So this is I've done this with secondary students as well, and they really enjoy it. Again, it's very quick, doesn't take much time at all to make the snowflake, but then the activity later on is a lot more meaningful. And the follow-up is ask the partner whose snowflake you've got a follow-up question about one of the topics, and then again they tell the rest of the class. So it's also kind of a nice activity to get to know your students a little bit better. Great. Okay, now we're quickly moving on to finishing the class. So we've looked at, if you can remember, at the warmers where we're kind of like, oh, maybe the projector's still going to work, to oh no, nothing's working today. And now we're kind of at the end of the class and you still have 5 to 10 minutes, and you are, well, not desperate, but you're kind of trying to think about what you could do with your students that is still meaningful and still relative to what you had planned to do in the class or to the material that you've been looking at with them. So again, some of my favorite anagrams. I'm going to show you one, and let's see if in the chat. So this is from a course book for 11-year-olds, and it's places in a park. Can you try and guess in the chat what the anagrams are? Can you choose from the words um, in the table? Okay, some very quick ones. Excellent. Okay, so we've got fountain, picnic tables, and skate park. Great. But again, no need to prepare. You still have a few minutes to go before the end of the class. Write the words. Write the words on the board, and students have to guess together what they are. You don't need to show them the table because they're words that they'd already seen, so it makes it a little bit more challenging for them. And hopefully, they will try and remember and activate the vocabulary from the previous class. All right. Okay. Again, typical topical. I'm going on a picnic and I'm taking a banana with me. Okay, next student has to remember the banana. So I'm going on a picnic and I'm taking a banana and an apple with me. Okay, the third student, I'm going on a picnic and I'm taking a banana and an apple and a bottle of water with me. Okay, and then we go on, and then eventually they won't remember. But I know this is a very basic game, but if you do it just from time to time, if you do it very often, it gets tiring. But if you do it from time to time, it's lovely to see how much students help each other and how invested they are in trying to remember as a group. Okay, flashcard line job. This is with the lower levels where we still have flashcards, so separate them kind of. If you can see, there's kind of like a common thread running through a session. So we're like looking quite a lot at vocabulary sets. So again, you've got your flashcards with the different vocabulary sets, even the ones you'd seen previously, and just give simple instructions to students. If I say a job, or if I show you a job, then you have to jump to the left. If it's a type of fruit, jump to the right. If it's an animal, you clap. And then you can build on this as well. You can do all kinds of silly actions as well. It's up to you if you want to eliminate students, if you want to give them plus points. Totally up to you. Okay. True false sentences for the older students. Your typical comprehension exercise after reading or listening, where you have either questions or even prepared sentences. But if there are questions, you can turn them into sentences. If so, divide the class. Point to two sides of the classroom. If the sentence is true, go to the door. If the sentence is false, go to the window. And this is what I'm talking about. So this typical kind of like a long reading with comprehension questions following it. And yeah, so you read out the sentence, and students have to decide if that sentence is true or false, and then they move around the classroom. So again, because this is quite cognitively quite challenging, this is an activity for older students. All right. And so we're coming to the end of the presentation before the questions. Please cast your mind on what we've done in the session. So we've looked at some warmers, we've looked at some longer lesson structures, and we just looked at finishing the class. In the chat, could you please write your favorite zero tech activity from the session? Okay.
I have to say, Sylvie, that I love the fortune teller activity because I remember doing that when I was young, but I've never done it in an English class, but I
Oh,
definitely
okay.
will.
See, it always, every time I do some like basic origami, I'm like horrible at like more advanced origami, but basic origami, it makes me feel like it kind of brings the child back in me as well.
Yeah,
And it's, yeah,
yeah,
it's lovely to.
absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you
So I'll
everyone
take
for
this.
sharing it.
I'll take this opportunity to say thank you, Sylvie. These are, I mean, that was absolutely full of ideas, and yeah, everyone is saying in the comments on Facebook and in the chat here that they loved so many of them.
Oh, well, thank you.
Maybe, maybe a question,
Mhm.
Sylvie. Do you have a
Sure.
favorite? Is it,
Oh,
can you choose one?
hmm. Okay, it depends on what mood I'm in as well. I think it also depends, like as a teacher, sometimes you do feel like arts and crafts, and sometimes you feel more like, oh, let's focus more on the course book. But the look on my students' faces when we make it snow in class
Mm.
is just amazing. So I think that might actually be my favorite one because it's also very simple, and
Hmm.
basically all students can do it and they don't get frustrated by it. And
Oh,
the
so
fact that we use it for questions is it's a great question practice, like meaningful within the classroom.
that sounds really beautiful. So you've got lots of students and they've all got snowflakes and they're all kind
So
of
they make
bouncing
their
around.
snowflake, write their answers on them without the
Mhm.
questions. And then we make a circle, stand in a circle. And then when I say three, and I always have to tell them. So when I say three, we can make it snow. 1, 2, 3, and then just throw them in the air. And they kind of,
I
yeah,
love
they
it.
do float. And then we continue with the rest of the activity.
Oh, that sounds like such a memorable moment in class. I love that. Um, we're going to go to questions, Sylvie.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to look and see what we have. One question from someone that teaches adults,
Mm,
and they ask, which of the activities that you've mentioned would you use in a group of adult learners?
okay.
Hmm.
So I do have an answer to that. Any that you feel comfortable with. I think it's about your attitude. I am capable of using any of these in an adult classroom, but only because what we mentioned at the beginning, I really like kind of the element of play in the classroom. Noughts and crosses, I've definitely done it, especially in adult coursebooks where you have a lot of, sometimes you have pages kind of exercises or reading, so to motivate them a little bit more. Uh, Anagrams. I wouldn't, sorry, I'm lying. I've never done the kind of the jump to the right, jump to the left for vocabulary sets. But again, maybe there's something to discover. But yeah, definitely knots and crosses. Some very simple origami, doodling. I find that adult students kind of find it very relaxing. So as long as things are meaningful, they'll definitely go with it.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Say why you're
Hmm.
doing it.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. I'm learning French, and to be honest, if my French teacher asked me to line up and jump from the left to right, I'd be really happy and I would do it. So,
Yeah, no. I think it depends on the teacher's attitude as well. Like if you
mm.
believe it, then, and if you think it's a great activity for your students, they'll just go with it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take another question. It's from Abdullah Vahin, and Abdullah says the dice game is great. I was wondering if you could share an idea of how to use it in an online class. The
Oh,
dice game.
okay.
Oh,
I don't think I've
okay.
ever used it in an online class, but there are lots of online I mean, in an online class you must have technology, so we can use online dice apps.
Yeah.
So you could use those. You could have your students operating the dice and then
Hmm.
just do the actions in a breakout room. Totally fine.
Yeah, that would work. That would work,
Hmm.
definitely. Yeah, Google online dice. I'm sure
Hmm.
there's some.
Yeah, there are some very
Maybe the
cute
chat.
ones as well. Sorry?
The chat. Maybe using the chat as well,
Hmm.
perhaps.
Hmm.
Yeah, could do. Um, and another
Or if you
question
want
came.
to, you could just pretend, you know, or have your own dice as a teacher
Yeah,
and just choose it. Yeah.
yeah, true. You definitely could. Um, well, let's ask a question from Muhammad Usman, and he asks, he was talking about the word snake activity, and he asked, what level and age of language learners would you do the word snake activity with?
Okay, I think they have to be good with scissors and with cutting. So in this context, where we're saying you don't have time to prepare, you don't have time to photocopy the spiral for your students, I think 7-year-olds and up are able to draw the spiral and then cut it.
Mm.
Uh, if you want to use it in kind of like an activity where you can prepare and you can make photocopies of the spiral than even 5, 6-year-olds. But
Mhm.
uh, I wouldn't use it with 5-year-olds because they can't a lot of them can't write yet. So
Yeah.
as 7 and up, I would say but definitely kind of aim towards the higher side just because of the fine motor skills that you need to be able to draw the spiral, cut it out. But as far as the vocabulary that you put on it, that really just depends on the level that you're teaching
Mhm.
from that level up. So yeah.
Yeah, true. Great. Um, um, I think we're just coming to the end now. So I mean, let's say thanks again, Sylvie. Thanks again. Um, we have a session today all about technology, but it's so refreshing to have some ideas of what we can do when something goes wrong.
Yeah,
It's
because I
absolutely
mean, we all
perfect.
love technology in class, but sometimes, we might struggle. So it's good to have a plan B.
Well, thank you for coming and telling us about your plan B. We've loved having you here, and for everyone else, stick around. In 15 minutes, we have another session. We have Lauren Perkins, who's coming to talk about maximizing interaction in the online classroom. So that should be really interesting as well. And then later on, I'll talk about communicative activities using AI. So thank you again, Sylvie.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for
Thanks.
having me.
Thanks to all the participation in the chat. Thanks to Anne and Joe who have been moderating, and thanks to Naomi who's moderating in Facebook as well. So we'll see you all hopefully in about 15 minutes for our next webinar. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.